he is 100% worth it.
He takes it to another level. Oh my God, I just fell in love with it.
Thanks so much, Jay.
Blew my mind. And it worked. I wanted to buy my thing.
Jay is, I would say, the Yoda of sales calls, man.
Just talking to Jay, he was so good at just taking what it is, seeing the opportunity and the value and the real reason we are making it.
Talk to Jay because he got it. He can definitely help you out.
Talk to Jay. You're going to get a lot. You're going to gain a lot.
I would absolutely recommend him for any position that you have.
Jay's definitely the guy.
Give him the chance, give him the opportunity. You won't regret it.
He's good at what he does, so I highly recommend him, and I would book him before he is fully booked out.
Welcome back to the Sales Ninja Show podcast, where we cut through the noise, ditch the outdated sales tactics, and show you how to close deals with confidence, strategy, and integrity. Hi, my name is Jay Lee, and I'm the founder of Sales Ninja. If you're tired of chasing leads, handling objections that are endless, and feeling like you have to convince people to buy, you're definitely in the right place. Here, we do sales differently. We believe in positioning over pressure, where the right people lean in without the need for pushy tactics. And that's the heart of the reverse glass selling method, which is a kingdom-driven approach based on 1 Peter 3:15, built on trust, service, and true connection. Because when you lead with value, sales becomes effortless. And when you sell more, you can give more. Today's episode is one that you do not want to miss. Imagine transforming digital assets that most people would overlook into multi-six-figure deals without doing a single sales call. Hello. Imagine building partnerships that drive huge profits, all with a few simple tools. Sounds like magic, right? Well, today's guest has mastered this art. He spent over a decade turning digital trash can assets into revenue-generating powerhouses, and he's here to share exactly how he does it. From building partnerships to mastering the art of deal making, this guest is one of the best at helping entrepreneurs scale their businesses without the headaches of client work. So buckle up, because you're about to learn how to grow your business smarter and faster than ever before. So please welcome the expert who's been making waves in the world of business partnerships, Tony Teegarden. Tony, welcome to the Sales Ninja Show podcast. How you doing, brother?
Hey, good to see you, man. Good to see you. That was one heck of an intro. Thank you.
I always say that when I have my guests on, I feel like a WWF or WWE wrestling MC. I'm the hype man, and exactly. I put you guys at the front and promote you the heck out of as much as I possibly can to help you generate more engagement, more leads, more sales. So that's what we're all about here.
Thank you, appreciate it, brother.
So your bio is pretty interesting. I've interviewed a whole bunch of people, 6, 7, 8, 9, even had a 10-figure sales coach, $1 billion sales coach. So I've seen and heard a lot. This is incredible that you're an author, investor, rainmaker, and I have a whole bunch of questions to ask. I'm going to apologize in advance if you have to go because of us running out of time. We'll do a part 2, but there's so much that I want to dig into, and I think that you have so much to offer. So the first part is the personal journey and transformation. Path to no sales calls. You've been selling high-ticket offers online for 10 years without picking up a phone for a sales call. How did you discover this method of selling, and what was a turning point where you knew that this was the future of business?
So, I can't take total credit for it. About in 2015, I invested $30,000 with a mentor that pretty much, I would say, change the trajectory of my online career. I was doing well, doing multiple 5 figures a month, but I was just burnt out. I had a podcast. I was, doing webinars. I was doing sales calls. I was doing all these things, and I was just pretty much maxed out. And, this gentleman pretty much got me in a better direction where I was doing a lot more, getting a lot more accomplished with a lot less energy. And we have a saying where it's, you want to do thimbles of energy and get oceans of return, right? And so, we ran with this methodology of being able to tap in sales, and we call it tapping because we just tap on our keyboards. And the journey into that, I remember when I first began to learn about it was, it was literally a PDF with some links on it. It was like, hey, go get them. And so we were his guinea pigs, as lovingly he'll say. And we went out, we dove into that, and here we are 10 years later. We're closing anything from $500 to $70,000 in chat or email, and I like doing it in email probably most. And it's just been a wild ride. It's been a lot of fun.
Did you say you're closing 500 to 70,000 deals on email?
Yeah. So far, that's the largest was 70,000. We have a pretty unique way of going about doing this, where we will send out an email from our partner's CRM. They will we give them a code word on each email. They respond back to, I like to use a free Gmail account. So they'll respond back to my free Gmail account. And over there, we have a process of going back and forth with those individuals. We like to, essentially testing for commitment is ultimately it, making sure we can help them, making sure they're in a good headspace and things like that, especially depending on what we're selling. And if all goes well, we send them a payment link that belongs to our partner. They enroll, and that's it. We use a Google Doc. Matter of fact, I live by Google Docs. I've got something special for your folks, and it's on an ugly Google Doc, and I do that for a reason, because if it doesn't work when it's ugly, it ain't going to work when it's pretty. So that's it.
It's like my golf game. If I can't even get an ugly half swing, don't even try doing a full swing. I was just at the driving range this morning. So I'm all about Google Doc offers, and I've been able to sell through Google Doc offers. I'm really interested, like when you say you sold $70,000 over an email. So you send them a payment link for the offer, if it's the right fit, if it solves a problem they're trying to face, and then through the email they send a credit card payment through the link in email.
Yeah, we send them our partner's payment link,
right?
And that we send that over to them. They enroll. My partner onboards them. All good and dandy. Done.
Okay, that is mind blowing, because a lot of people, even on a call with a live, sales rep, would be hesitant to give a 70K over, let alone just through an email, because there's trust and there's rapport issues. So that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, it's not so much what happens in the Google Doc, and it's not even so much what happens in the chat. It's what happens before all of that. And I'll give it a shameless plug here for Travis Sago and his Make 'em Beg to Buy book, which is the 5 Ps. It's pretty much the answer to overcoming or moving through that obstacle or that constraint, which you call trust. There's an old saying, people won't buy until they know, like, and trust you. And we've tended to, how do I be kind about it? We just don't live by that standard, right? If you come by a lion and they've got a thorn in their paw, they're probably going to be a bit skittish. Obviously, it's a wild animal, but in a perfect world, if you could remove that from their paw, chances are they're going to be like, "Oh, you're a pretty cool dude. I'm not going to eat you."
Yeah.
So thank you. Right. It's the same thing here. And so a lot of it. So I have a process called the Floodmaker, and in the Floodmaker, it's really what happens overall. You have to, more or less, we think a little bit more long term than say, some other people would. But in the Floodmaker, there's an arc, there's a campaign arc that happens. So when I'm running a test with my partner, I already know I'm going to run about a 14-day test. And in that 14-day test, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to have a certain series of emails, and certain things are going to happen. Well, what happens is my first email goes out, I'm having chat conversations back and forth. And so what I want to do is I want to get some of the best marketing material that's out there, which is the data from my people. So we do campaigns in real time. So I only start out with a Google Doc and one email. And so based on that, when we start having conversations with people, they're giving me some of the best material ever. And I kind of break this down inside my Floodmaker and how we do this and what the arc looks like and everything. But I'm utilizing that. And then I'm writing an email in real time every day for the next day that all ties everything together as part of the arc. And so it's a lot of that pre-selling that's happening prior to people showing up in chat. And it's also what's happening during the arc. I've had people, matter of fact, I just ran a campaign here a couple months back with my very first school group. But usually I like to work with email databases. I did a school group for the first time. We had about 85 people in there, and we did $100,000 in 30 days.
What?
And yeah. And so, the interesting thing was during the first part of that campaign, I had about 8 people that were like, I'm out. Never mind. I'm not interested. Thanks though. And so, but what I did was taking the data constantly, they're seeing new messages showing up every day in that group. And before the campaign was over, all but one person had came back and said, hey dude, you're speaking my language with this stuff. I'm in, I want to do this. And so they ended up coming on board. Right. So it's just one didn't, the rest of them.
So 7 people came on board.
7 people came back after saying no, because of this process of pre-selling, listening to people, paying attention. That's it.
Wow. That sounds amazing. Floodmaker process, campaign arc, and then getting 8 people who said they're out of the campaign, and 7 of them coming back and buying, or coming back into the community.
Oh, no, they bought. Yeah, they all bought.
Gosh. Because it's different from having someone come back into a free school community or someone actually buying. That's a huge difference.
Yeah. This was a free community. It was going to be a trash can asset. I was going to set it up, do the campaign, and then just delete the school group. But then after I thought about it, I was like, well, that's kind of dumb. And so, all these people had purchased. We'd done about at that point around 80,000 in sales. And so I was like, So I sold some licensing. We signed up some folks for licensing that they wanted to actually sell the products. That was another 10K that I brought in on top of that. So ended up keeping the group, and now it's my Meaningful Man school community. So I have a couple of different assets that I've leveraged now. I've got my Meaningful Man newsletter. And so there's a lot of really good stuff. There's a lot of free content, but also it has paid aspects of it. Like you and I were talking about being a person of faith. There's a lot of stuff there earlier on in that newsletter where I really talk about, my connection to Christ and how literally it's moved mountains in my life. It's moved mountains out of my way. It's moved me out of my own way, and just being, living a more meaningful life in a way that has more fulfillment to it. So I took that. And the funny thing is, the reason I'm telling you a story is I had the Meaningful Man school community, and I've been paying for it for about a year, and I hadn't done anything with it. I was like, oh, I'll just use this and throw it away. And God had another plan in place. So I was like, okay, now we're using it. And it's a growing, thriving paid community, which is pretty fun.
The school community is now a paid community?
Yeah, that school community is a paid community, correct.
So you have multiple school communities?
I do, because this is a recent, I'm sure we'll talk about this too, but out of my new book, Deals Over Clients, one of the things that I did was when people buy the book, they also get access to a free school community, and it's the Deals Over Clients school community. So they have to buy the book. They get access to resources. Inside those resources, they get the school community. They get about 8 different deep dive video case studies that are from the book. I interviewed those individuals. We went even deeper. They also get access to my Dealmakers Toolkit, which has everything that they need in order to secure their first deal. And that's what that group is for, is so that individuals can secure their first group secure their first partnership. Once they've done that, then ultimately, of course, they want to cash flow that. And that's where the Meaningful Man school community comes into play. We've got the Floodmaker campaign, which comes along with that school community. Also, I've got what's called the Symptoms to Sales AI Toolkit tool suite. And in there are a multitude of AI tools that we use in order to craft offers, create emails in the way that we do them. We do them in a very weird, specific way, especially to go into this arc that we do during a Floodmaker campaign. And I've got a whole bunch of other resources and tools in there as well that come as part of that.
Amazing. Yeah. So let's talk about the trash can assets. A lot of people who are listening to this live or even to the podcast are like, what is a trash can asset, and how do you turn that into gold?
Yeah. So I'll just tell you, like, my best partnerships are the people that are already doing well. right? So, I always like to say, you're doing well without me, I'm doing well without you, but maybe together we can do something special. And what I generally find is people that are already doing well, especially if they have like a 7-figure business, they know they have parts and pieces and aspects of their business that they don't simply have the time, the energy, or the resources either to hire people to do or to outsource their team to do. Like, they have priorities, they have missions that they're on, and missions are really important for me, that a company has. If they have that mission, chances are there's a lot of trash can assets, and we're talking about databases, old programs, maybe they're not promoting. I look at it, there's 2 different ways. There's distribution, and then there's going to be your distribution, and then there's going to be your assets like courses, programs, and things like this, right? So if they have those things in place, then I can come in and I can leverage assets like, let's just say, it could be a buyer's list that maybe they're only emailing once a month. Give me access to that buyer's list. I can run a campaign. Probably one of my better campaigns, we did it. They had a 5,000 person buyer's list. We turned it into $529,000 in 18 days.
$520,000 in 18 days?
$529,000 in 18 days, right? With 5 emails, only 5 emails. 5 emails and a Google Doc, right?
Wow.
So it was a list that they were kind of marketing to, not really. So is it a trash can asset? Kind of, sort of, right? Now, some people covet their buyers lists, absolutely. But there's going to be Facebook groups. There's going to be school groups. There's going to be list segments in their email list that they're maybe only emailing once a month or once a week, gosh forbid. We have a specific way where we can email every single day. People not only don't get mad, they get upset if they don't hear from the partner every day, or if there's a day missed. They go, hey, what's going on, right? So we have a very unique way of going about, having people enjoy the conversations that are coming to them and coming, from our partnerships. And so, we can go into any one of these assets and do this. And literally, now my interest is not waking up dead lists. It's not what I do. Right.
Okay.
I just recently had somebody reach out and say, hey man, I got a 10,000 person email list. I haven't mailed it in years. And I'm like, yeah, that's not what I do. Yeah. That's not what I do. I want to go where there's affinity, where there is a relationship, but maybe where the partner just doesn't have the time, the energy, or the resources. Give you a great example. I talked to a gentleman last year. They were a $30 million company. And I asked him first thing, I was like, hey, you guys are doing really well. What are you considering this for? He says, well, your offer is perfect because, we're doing well. Yes. But for us to go to the next level where we want to go financially, we'd have to invest more in more salespeople, more overhead, more ads. And he's like, quite frankly, you eliminate all of that. And so that's why this is so interesting to us.
Yeah, I think that is very interesting because you're right. Like a lot of people when I was in the high ticket closing space, they do depend on the marketing. They do depend on the organic, and a lot of them depend on the paid ads. And
right.
And they got to scale by, getting appointment setters and closers. And when or if the marketing or the ads either dry up or the campaigns break or, the cost per lead is too high, everything falls apart. So you have a completely different system and process that eliminates a need for that, for example, for your $30 million company. So how do they hear about you? How do they get into your funnel and your ecosystem and your sales process?
Yeah. So it's funny because I don't really have a sales funnel. I don't really have a sales process so much. For me, if anything, it's vetting people. Because I see myself as an investor, I'm taking my time, my energy, my resources. We have a saying in the book, be the chooser, not the chosen. Right. And so there's a lot of people when I come to the dance and I go, hey, I'll pretty much take all the to-dos off your list. I'll write all the copy. I'll generate all the leads. I will manage all of my tappers, my people that do all the closings, because we don't need sales calls. I'll manage the entire campaign, and we'll close all the sales. We'll just hand you over shiny new customers. That's a pretty compelling offer, especially when I add on top of it, by the way, you don't have to pay us a dime until you get paid. And for the right person, it won't cost you a dime. Now, all of a sudden, people are like, okay, like, what's the catch, right?
Yeah.
The catch is that I'm going to vet to make sure that I'm investing my time and energy wisely in someone that has affinity with their audience, that has a working offer or working offers. And so and have those trash can assets. I'll give you a great example. Somebody has webinars. I love webinars because the vast majority of the time, there's a lot of people that schedule but don't show up for the webinar. People that show up for the webinar but maybe don't finish the webinar. They show up for the webinar, maybe they finish it, but there's one of two routes, right? They either send them to a cart to check out, of which they abandon or don't buy, and then or they schedule a call, they don't show up for the call, or maybe they schedule the call, they show up for the call, but they don't buy, right? Those are all assets, trash can assets, that most of the time what a lot of people do with webinars is they have like an email follow-up sequence for 7 days or whatever, and that's it, right? Mm-hmm. So I can, if somebody has something like that, set up like that, I can come in and I can save them millions of dollars. I've recently spoke to someone, that they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on ads. Their cost per call, they're profitable. They're a huge company, a multi-million-dollar company, but their cost per call is so high. And I'm like, well, give me all of these leads you've already paid for that haven't closed, and I'll turn them into cash. And you don't pay me a dime until you get paid. And so for them, they look at it as paying me 30% of found money, 40% of found money, sometimes 50% in found money, especially if I'm creating entirely new revenue streams, which is another thing that we can do based on this. It still saves them time and energy and money. And they don't have to manage me. They don't have to manage my team, and they don't have to pay us a dime until after they get paid. So you can imagine, to answer your question, I'm vetting for people. And so a lot of times it's word of mouth. I get a lot of referrals that are brought across my desk. I say no to probably 8 out of 10 easily. Now I do today, I have, people that, as I mentioned, I'm training and I'm working with in our Meaningful Man School community. I'm generally looking for specific size companies because I want to work with larger companies that are more established that I can go deep with. And so I've got a team that I can now hand over some of those other deals if it's deals that maybe is not what I'm looking to work with. But we end up getting a lot of referrals. And now, of course, with the book coming out, a lot of people are understanding what I'm doing, and they're coming to me. But ultimately, I don't really have a sales process. And usually I'm only running a handful of campaigns per year, because once I run that test campaign, and again, it's always a test that we start out with first. After that, I want to go deep with that company. So for me, getting 2 or 3, really good partners a year is all I need. And from there on, it's pretty much I'm booked out.
Amazing. I'm just going to take a moment to say hello to the people who are tuning in. Brandy Graves, I'm not sure if you know any of these people, if they're coming from your Facebook feed or mine. We have Simcha saying hello. Yep. We have David Thorpe. Yep. Are these all your guys?
Yeah, the first one's my fiance, so I'm glad she's. I'm glad. I better know her. That's who you see you walking around in the back here. So
I was like, how is she walking and commenting? That's pretty incredible. Mm-hmm. She's everywhere. She's okay. And we have Adnick says, "Sir, how are you?" If you guys have any questions for Tony, just leave them in the comments, and we will put them up for you guys to see if and how we can serve you guys. I want to talk about your approach to deal making, because you said that 80% of the people that come your way through referrals, word of mouth, you decline. So what is your approach to deal making? What is the criteria? I know you mentioned like product market fit. They have to have an offer that's working. They're already doing well without you. What are some of the other criteria that you're looking for? Maybe there's EQ, IQ, there's different things.
Yeah. I mean, well, for me, there's, number one is I got to like what they're doing. It's got to be something new and different. Or they're doing something differently than the rest of the market. To me, that's a number one. There's a lot of stuff that I would have done years ago that types of niches I don't do today. And so, for me, I like to look at list size is important. Like for me, I love digital assets. I would say email lists are my favorite. I've had a lot of success with email lists. And other than that, though, if people have school groups, that's probably now my second most favorite to work with. We can do school, we can do Facebook groups and things like that. But I look at size, I look at affinity. What's the relationship there with the audience? That's really important. We always like to say, like, they can't hate you, right? They don't have to necessarily be raving fans constantly, but of course that helps. But criteria wise, I'm looking for list sizes. I'm looking for for customer database sizes. Because quite frankly, for me, it's not about constantly running campaigns every month or, every year. Like last year, I worked 6 months out of the year and I ran about, I think it was 8 or so campaigns. And so, when you're dealing with, large companies and that have tons of assets, especially say it's like, I've got one partner we're talking to who's got about 3 million people on their email list. Another one's got about 600,000. Wow. when you have those types of sizes. Now, I'm not saying that's primarily all I focus on, but right now that's where my focus is. If somebody come to me and said, "Hey, Tony, we've got 100,000 people on a general list, and we have maybe about 20, 30,000 people on a buyer's list," that's excellent. But that's not my only criteria. But I would be interested in still having a conversation. But I want to know, what is it they're doing, right? What is it that's different and desirable in the market that they're doing? And what's the affinity like? What's that relationship like? And of course, I'll go and do my own, investigations, and I'll do my own stalking, so to speak, online, and looking to see like, what are they doing and how are people engaging? They have YouTube channels. If they have Instagram channels, what are those relationships like? When I go on an Instagram channel, I see somebody who's got 200,000 followers, but they've only got 8 or 9 people, liking of it, and it's pretty steady. I know there's not really a ton of affinity there, right?
Right.
I've seen people that, like I think back in 2023, I had a lady who was only a 12,000 person email list, but we did 200,000 in sales in 10 days. But
wow.
her list was built from live events. So she had this incredible affinity and this depth of relationship with them that, of course, when COVID happened, they couldn't do the live events anymore. So they all, went to online and went to email. So it was a no-brainer with that email list of only 12,000 people to do 200,000 in sales. And we collected a little over half of that up front, which most of the campaigns we do, we collect about 50 to 60, 70% of the cash up front. The rest comes in payments over a certain period of time. So relationship, affinity, of course, for me, list size is important, but it's still now with having people that I can refer smaller deals over to, that's something that we'd still have conversations about. But that was my point of saying, a small list can account for, when you have a lot of affinity with it, it still can be something that, that we can monetize. I have one of my friends and partners that runs campaigns. He's out of Spain. English is his second language. And he just ran a campaign last year with about an 8,000 person buyers list, did almost $200,000 with that, or 130,000 on that one. Did another one with that same list. I think it was his 4th campaign with that list. They did about 160,000, 170,000 with that campaign. Again, all in like about 8 or 10 days or something like that. So we always like to say the reason we know how to monetize a large list is because we know how to monetize a small audience first. So
I am mind blown. That's incredible. I mean, I think people who are watching are like, okay, how can we work with Tony? Because you're obviously like saying, out of the 10 people, 8 of them you're declining. So I know you said some numbers, and you can't work something that's big unless you can't work something that's small. But some people might be listening and saying, okay, what's small, and can I be a candidate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because they want to know.
I'll give you a great example. So we just had a gentleman, Peter. He's in South Africa. Doesn't have the greatest internet, doesn't have a warm market. He purchased Deals Over Clients, showed up in our free Deals Over Clients community. Within a week, he got his first deal. And it's an individual who has a 2,000 person email list. They've got a $5,000 offer, and he's worked out a 20% rev share on that deal. And so, of course, not huge, right? But again, context matters. I've been doing this for 10 years. Peter is a copywriter and has clients, and he wants to move away from that model, and he wants to transition into doing deals. And so a 2,000 person email list, nothing wrong with that, right? Especially if he's getting 5,000, out of a 5,000, he's getting 20% on a $5,000 deal for each one he sells. If he sells 10 of those, he just made way more than he'd ever make being a copywriter, charging a monthly retainer or charging some fees up front. And then he's got to go out and get another one when that's done, or hopefully that one will continue to use him, right? Hoping he'll be chosen. So those are, probably small, tinier deals, but in the context of who's doing the deal, it could be gigantic, in that sense. The thing is with the smaller deals, for me at least, I'm looking at going long term. I look at everything, and we talk about everything in the sense of like dating. So, when in dating and relationships. So, everything is, for an example, when I talk to somebody, I'm going on a coffee date, and on that coffee date, I can determine, and it's not about whether or not I'm turning down 8 out of 10 people. I'm not doing this, right? I'm not being snooty. I'm just going, hey, listen, I would be kind of useless to you, right? So I want to be very clear about that. We're not like shunning 8 out of 10 people. I'm just going, hey, what you got going on, I'm probably not going to be very useful to you. And so for me to work smaller deals, it's not as useful to me because with a 2,000 person list, I'm probably going to, unless we're feeding that thing with ads and new leads and things like that, I'm going to be kind of dead in the water after a campaign. And I'm looking for folks that can handle, that have capacity for, 50, 100, or more new clients a month, right? Inevitably, or at least can handle that every other month or something along that lines, right? But again, for someone who's brand new, who's maybe working with clients, who wants to get away from that, Peter's situation is ideal. It's not uncommon for us to see new deal makers, what I call them, to get access and get control of a 20,000 person email list. Last year, I ran a campaign. Some folks handed me over their entire 47,000 person email list, and we did $364,000 in 13 days. That campaign ended a week before Christmas.
$364,000 in 18 days.
$364,000 in 13 days.
From a 47,000 email list.
Right. And we closed that campaign that ran for 13 days, and it closed a week before Christmas.
That's a hard time.
Well, that's what most people say, but Christmases or Decembers have always been some of my best years. Because again, people's problems, I always say people's problems don't go away during Christmas. And so it kind of goes back to earlier when you and I were talking about it. We approach things in a different approach, in the sense that people will pay a lot more for relief from some kind of pain than they will the promise of some sort of utopian future down the road, right? And so we know where to put our focus in order to serve that partner's prospects at the highest. And usually that is going to be relieving them of some kind of pain, and there's symptoms around that pain that we can get really clear on and be specific about. And that's what we find out during those arcs. So, again, it's really important to kind of know those nuances.
Okay, so amazing. So when you are working with these clients, whether it's these, 2,000 email lists or, 100,000 email lists, how long does it take, like in terms of the process, how long does it take to help launch this and monetize it? Number one. And a two-part is, you said you guys do all the work. You build the funnels, the emails, like the copy, you do everything. So how long does it take, and what work do you do?
So I want to back up to one other thing. You'd mentioned clients. I had to break myself of that word so long. It took me probably years to some degree, but they're not clients, they're partners.
Right. Partners.
Yep, right. So with partners, and again, we don't have any funnels to build. That's the beautiful part about this. So literally, I can have one of these ready to go within 3 days prior to a campaign. So once I do a coffee date and we decide, hey, let's take a test. Let's go run a test with a specific, individual segment of their list or whatever the asset might be. I do a phone call with them to go over the offer. And on that same call, I can also do what we call a content call, which is how I pull out a lot of stories and analogies and metaphors from my partner's real world experience. And it usually only takes me about a day. I can put together the first email and what we call the T3, which is a Google Doc that has the offer. So literally I can have those up and done within, I can have all that done within a matter of 3 days. And then we have our, with one of my tech guru partners, we have a special setup with our Gmail account. I buy the domain, we push one button, everything's set up inside of Gmail. We have complete categories of how we go through our tapping process. And then we even also have AI that can help us with some of the initial responses and things like that. So I can handle real large campaigns, and it's just usually me and one other person that's tapping, or, if it's large enough, we might have a third person. But that's really it. So usually it takes us about, 3 days. We could have one up and running. I like to give myself a week, so it's not too stressful. But sometimes when we're, really want to get moving, we can have it up and running in 3 days, because there is no funnels. The copy is written on the go. And we have AI that helps us with that, so that we're actually writing in our partner's voice. That's all part of the tool suite. I can have that done in minutes instead of trying to train AI for months. And so it's really the reason I love the Floodmaker so much, because that's what I'm explaining here, is because it's so minimalistic, the way that we end up doing it. And so we don't need to jump through a lot of hoops. We don't need to do everything. And again, it's a test. And the great thing about the Floodmaker is after about 2 or 3 emails, 4 emails max, I know whether this thing's going to go okay or not. Immediately I can tell. And so during that test, if I feel as if the test isn't going in a direction I'd like it to go, if we don't have the affinity with the audience, or I'm sniffing some things aren't going well, I just stop the campaign. We don't run it 14 days. We don't, we only run it 2 or 3 or 4 days max. And then, chances are, and it doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, we just say, hey, listen, it looks like I might be mustard and your audience is peanut butter. Nothing wrong with either one of them. They just don't make a good sandwich together. And that's it. No harm, no foul. But we went in managing expectations, going, hey, let's just run a test. I don't know how it's going to go. People ask me all the time, Tony, let me see case studies. Let me see that. Number one, a lot of my partnerships at the size that they are, they have me sign NDAs. So I'm not going to share their private data. We're not going to do that. Most partners don't want you to know that we're in there doing some of this stuff, right? And so number two, most importantly, I could tell you and show you this one I did 529,000. This one I did 364,000. This one I did 200 and some odd thousand. And everybody would be able to show you the winners, but there's also the losers, quote unquote, or the ones that didn't turn out. That's why it's a test. So if you're going to ask me, let me see your case studies. So number one, I don't, I'm not there to go, hey, let me show you case studies so you pick me. It's not how partnerships work. Do you bring value? Do I bring value? Yes. Do you have a problem? I can solve it, right? Do you not want to pay up front? That's fine. I don't charge until you get paid anyway. Like, it's a true partnership. And so I'm not going into these partnerships hoping to get chosen. I'm going to choose because I'm the one that's taking the most risk. My partners are going to see everything that goes out to their audience before it goes out. So therefore we make sure that everything is kosher. And there's nothing for them to lose. If they didn't like something or whatnot, which is very, very rare, we just don't, we make the tweak and that's it.
Amazing. So there's a lot of business models where, some people will be like, we need to get paid to do the work because it's not worth it. And people have been burned. You're doing the opposite, which is performance-based, where you're not getting anything up front, but you're getting on the back end. Share about that whole revenue share versus a fixed fee, whether it's a retainer or a project fee, and how have you been able to sustain a successful business with that model where most people fail?
Yeah. So again, it comes down, it's not what I do, it's who I choose. And, I'll kind of go back to some of the language. It's that it is a true partnership. This is, I think, where a lot of people miss the boat. And so again, I want to go back to my dating analogy. We go on a coffee date with someone. If we get some green lights, there's no yellow lights, there's no red lights, we go, hey, let's go on a first date. And so when we go on that first date, if I'm the man, and like with my fiance, I want to take her to some place where, I already know the food is good. I know the service is great. The ambiance is appropriate. I'm going to take her to some place where I know we're going to have a good experience, right? I'm not going to chance it on some place I've never been to.
Right. And
the same thing is true over here. So I know if I go on a coffee date with someone and I ask them, hey, listen, if we bring in a windfall of, $2 million over the course of 14 days, are you going to have a problem wiring me a couple $100,000? And if they stutter, right. And if they go, absolutely not, we would love to do that.
Yeah,
right. Right. So I don't want to get into a situation with a Scrooge McDuck. Right. But I ask those kinds of questions and make sure. And so great. We've got all green lights. We schedule a test. Now, once I'm in that test, and I've had to do this before where, I've set up the test. We're about to run the test, and then a major red light comes up. And we have a choice when a red light comes up.
Right.
We can either stop,
Yep,
or we can blow through it.
Mm.
And this is what I find talking about traditional revenue share, where most people fall down on it, is number one, usually during the coffee date, there's lots of red lights, or even lots of yellow lights and red lights. Yellow lights mean slow down. And so we slow down and we want to ask questions. We want to kind of, well, what do you mean by that? Or, where are you going with this? And so this is why with traditional models, I believe their vetting process is not nearly as strict, because for me, for an example, with my fiance, there's certain core values that I had in place that were very important to me, right? That had to be in place in order for me to inevitably end up moving out to Arizona from Florida, right?
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. But there were values that complemented one another, and I think this is a very important point. Is that, like with her and I, she doesn't complete me, right? That's through Christ. She doesn't complicate me, right? By no means. If anything, she complements me and my values in my life. And our partnerships are the same way. And I think when you go through that vetting process of making sure that you're on the same page, making sure that they have the assets that are there, making sure they're, when we're working with assets with a partner, you've seen Lord of the Rings, right? Smeagol.
Yeah.
My precious, right?
Yeah.
My friend Travis, we joke about that all the time, of that, people are like, my precious. Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah, exactly.
The ring.
Yep. The ring. Yep. There you go. Those are not going to make great partners. I'm not looking for another boss. I'm not looking to be micromanaged. I know our craft, pretty decent at our craft, I'd like to say. And we truly go into this as a partnership where it's like, of course, it's the first date is a test. And then we're probably going to run another test after that, and maybe a third test after that. In many relationships, I've seen it in the past where certain personality types can't maintain a mask after so long. And so, dating somebody for a year, you start to realize, like, wait a minute, that mask is starting to slip, right? I'm talking about in the dating world. I've seen that happen before. I've been a part of that process. And the same can be true over here in partnerships. I had a partner, we did about 1.2 million in 4 months. After about 4 months, that mask started to slip. And so I had to walk away. So I think knowing, whereas a lot of people that go in the freelance world that try to do quote unquote rev share, this is a lot more than rev share. This is a true partnership where when we go into a partnership, I'm looking at how can I set up entirely new revenue streams that are hands-off for them, using assets, most cases, that they're not already leveraging or utilizing. That's a dream for a lot of business owners that are looking to leverage and maybe fund their mission so they can accomplish it faster, right? Without having to micromanage or sit on top of somebody or pay them additional monies. And with revenue share, that makes sense. With and going further than revenue share, but partnership. When we're talking about freelancers and fees and things like this, they become an expense. I'm a paycheck to my partners. And so freelancers and whatnot, they're trying to get paid up front to then promise, some sort of outcome. And immediately in that transaction, they become a expense, as opposed to someone in my position. The way we come in, we want to be a paycheck and a true partner.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not vetting, if they're not going through that process, if they're not choosing the who appropriately, right? That's where the relationship gets rocky. That's where they get screwed. The other key thing, and we talk about it in the book, is getting control of the flow while this is happening, right? This is something that freelancers generally don't know to do, not at their fault. But when I'm running, a test campaign, I'm setting up a Gmail account where all the leads are funneled through, and that's where I do all my special process. And so that's where I'm going to have conversations. But if something happened during the campaign, and say there was some sort of, for whatever reason, I've never had this happen, but if there was a disagreement of some kind or whatnot, I can stop the flow. The sales stop. and I
Right.
have control of that
Oh, I
process
see.
because
I
all
see.
the leads are going through me. Most freelancers, for an example, if they're building funnels or they're writing copy, they're doing that all inside of their clients' CRMs or on their funnel stuff. And many of them, I've seen it. I mean, you and I have both probably seen that in some of the same Facebook groups, right? It seems like a weekly occurrence. Hey, I just got screwed by this person. Hey, I just didn't get paid by this person. How do you guys handle this? And it gets messy. But I think when you have very clear agreements, number one, when you pick the who is the appropriate one, which is I talk about in the book. Number two, when you have these processes in place to protect both you and your partner, right? I think that it definitely negates getting screwed, out of payment, but really it negates both of you missing out on the opportunities that are available to both of you by working together and partnering.
Amazing. I know we're running out of time. So I have a situation, this is a real case scenario where there's 3 partners and they're really interested in having me help them grow, which is perfect for this segue in this podcast.
Yep.
They're giving 20% to each of their partners. So there's that's 20, 40, 60 between the 3 of them. They have 20% that they're giving towards the business to reinvest. So they only have 20% left, which they're willing to share. I mean, this is obviously a depends question, I'm sure. So they're willing to give that 20% up. I was actually thinking of doing a retainer model and taking half the rev share. Do you think it's better just to take 0 upfront? And if I'm a rainmaker and I can do similar traits of growing and scaling businesses and take the 20 on the back, or do a retainer on the front and take half the commissions or rev share, whatever?
I haven't taken money up front in years, on these types of deals. We used to, long time ago, I would take like a $5,000 retainer that would apply towards future commissions. And as I've mentioned sometime, especially back then when I wasn't as effective at choosing the who appropriately, I've had to give that back like once or twice, and it just doesn't feel good. Right now, I'm not saying that would be the case here, but for me, I'm more interested in a percentage of what I bring on board. And, the thing is once you, like for me, when I've had some major wins where, you get a couple $100,000 off of one deal, you can afford to be picky, right? You can afford to pick and choose and whatnot. But for me, and again, everybody's situation is different, right? If someone has a series of clients and that's how they're making their living, what I say transition immediately into going full-time, no, that would be kind of crazy. Do your first rev share deal, like I mentioned Peter did, inside of the Deals Over Clients group, and do the first one, but maintain your client work. Do the second one, start to get your legs under you, and then inevitably, and I've got a whole process of how somebody can transition from spare time to full-time. The trick behind that, though, is that your full-time should still be only spare time, part-time energy, and time, right? And so that's part of the key. Again, last year I worked 6 months out of the year and did very, very well, only running about 8 campaigns or so. But for you, I'm looking at like, okay, is it useful to take that full 20%? What kind of value can I bring? What pain are we relieving them of that they don't have to go out and do and invest money in and spend energy on? Because for me, most of my deals are somewhere between 30 and 40%, but it's also because if I'm selling a program that's normally $2,600, or they're selling a program that's $2,600, I can sell it for twice that amount. And I can and essentially top load, quote unquote, my portion on top. And that doesn't cost my partner anything. It's still a value because most of the time, I'd say a good 60, 70% of the time, my partners aren't charging appropriately for what the market would, number one, bear, and also for the pain that they relieve them of. And again, a lot of people aren't focused on that. So, for you, that 20%, I'd be like, well, what value can I bring for 20% that would keep them from? Now, for me, when I'm selling like a $10,000 offer, I'm good with 20, 25%. If I'm selling more of a volume play, if it's more like a $5,000 offer or $2,000 offer, then I'm going anywhere from 30 to 50%. And again, that's not a hard and fast rule. It's just a conversation that needs to happen. And there's a lot of different little things in play that we would, take into consideration before making those commitments.
And that's when you say rev share, that's cash collected percentage, like 50%. If you make $100, you get $50.
Correct, for whatever I generate. So, for an example, a lot of my partnerships, and we have a specific way we go about doing it and structuring payment plans and things like that. But if I do like the one campaign, if that's $529,000 up front, or excuse me, $529,000 in sales, cash collected, I'm a percentage of that cash collected. So I get a nice big healthy check there. But then I'm also a percentage of the money as it comes in on payments over the next several months, for an example.
Right.
Yep.
So it's in perpetuity.
Yeah. For however long those sales are generated from that campaign.
Oh, okay. So, and let's say you work with someone for like, I don't know, 6 months, and then the sale of the payment plan is a 12-month. Do you still get that?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's what happened. For an example, on the 529,000, that campaign was 18 days. After 18 days, we had multiple six figures that were still coming in on the back end. I think it was probably about 180,000 or so that was coming in off of sales. So, I continued to get my percentage off of those for the next 9 months. So we had a 10-month payment plan. So we had about 109 sales, and I'm wanting to say about at least 50-60% of those were cash up front. And then the other balance came in. So of course I'm getting paid on all those, actually that was 12 payments. Pardon me. We did 12 payments on that one. So, of course I got paid on cash up front as well as all those payments on the back end as well.
That's why you can work for 6 months and take 6 months off, right?
Yeah. You do a handful of those and you're having a good day. Yeah.
And are you teaching people how to do deals over clients as well?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so that's what you call the licensing fee or whatever. I don't know how you structure.
Yeah. So what we're doing there is, for an example, somebody purchases the book, they get to come into Deals Over Clients, the school community. That's where giving a lot of free resources, get their wheels underneath them, get their first deal. After that, I've got the Meaningful Man School community. That's where they get access to the Floodmaker campaign. That's where they get access to our support. That's where they get access to all of our additional back-end tools, the AI tool suite. All of those things are back there that they need in order to now cash flow deals. And that's pretty much where I'm spending my time. If somebody doesn't want to go that deep, they can always go to the Meaningful Man newsletter. There's a lot of free stuff there. For $20 a month, they can get access to a whole plethora of tools that are over there as well. It's a little more scattered and not nearly as defined and refined because it's been happening over 2 years. The Meaningful Man School newsletter, I do once a month. I do an AMA over there. Ask Me Anything. It's part of that membership. But then over in the Meaningful Man School community, I do a once, sometimes twice a month action call, and that's where we're just getting stuff done. It's like if people are stuck on something, if they have campaigns that they're doing, we help them walk through like some of the parts they might be running up on the curb with or anything like that. That's where we go real deep in there.
Amazing. So I'm going to do a speed round because we've gone over time. We have to do a part two because I'm not done.
Okay.
If you have a couple of minutes after, we might have to stick up for a couple of minutes if you have
Sure.
time. So let's do a speed round to get to know Tony Teegarden. So it's a lightning round where it's fun and quick fire questions. And then we're going to do a plug for your book. I'm going to do a screen share in just a moment and how people can get access to that, because that is kind of like the portal that opens the door to a plethora of impact, of cash, of partnerships versus clients. So that's be amazing. So deal of the year, what's the most exciting deal that you closed recently and what made it so special?
Gosh, I would say that one is still pending because there's two that I'm pretty stoked about. And I say stoked about, it's like I'm not attached to them, but at the same time, like they're pretty exciting. But we're talking millions of prospective buyers.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And how long is the sales cycle? What do you estimate?
Again, it's not a sales cycle; it's partnership, it's development, it's a relationship. How long does that take? Depending on personalities. This is where I think I separate myself from all the traditional types of things out there. It's, you don't rush a good relationship. My fiance and I, we've taken our time, and, we both have been married in the past before. And so, we both have come to the table with certain wisdoms and understandings. And so, like any partnership, there's no hard and fast rule. I do think rushing in far too quickly and committing is a problem, both in intimate relationships as well as business partnerships. So one of them I've been talking to for a year. One of them the one I talked to recently was literally within like a month, not even.
Amazing. So best email subject line. Can you share one subject line that consistently gets amazing open rates in your campaigns?
Gosh. We use symptomatic subject lines. So I'll give this away. So this is from my good friend and mentor, Travis. He's in the dating space, and this will kind of answer a lot of what you're saying. If a lady thinks that her man is leaving him, if a lady thinks that her man is leaving her, she's going to have her antenna up. And so she might be on different, sites and whatnot going, what's going on? He's acting like this. And so if I was to ask her, how do you know he's leaving you, or that he's thinking about leaving you, or that he's pulling away from you? The problem is he's pulling away, right? That's, most people's like, oh, is he pulling away? That'd be the subject line. And it's okay. But then if I was to ask her, how do you know he's pulling away from you? And she'll be like, you know what? He's not kissing me anymore when he comes home from work. He used to kiss me every single day. So a subject line is he not kissing you after work anymore? Question mark. Or is he not kissing you anymore? Question mark. We love those types of plays because it's real world symptomatic issues that someone's having in their life. So it's hard for me to say, like quick question has always worked well. If I'm looking to get feedback, I'm looking to get response from people. But those symptomatic subject lines like that, is he not, or is she not? Those things work really, really well.
Beautiful. We have Christian saying hello, and Christian Moore saying it's all about asking the right questions. So thank you guys for tuning in. The ultimate trash can asset you turned into a win. What's the single most surprising trash can asset you ever turned into a successful campaign?
I would have to go back and say it was the school community of like 80 people. And I was going to throw that group away afterwards. We turned
how much did that generate again? In how long?
About 100,000 in 30 days.
Wow. Amazing. Tech stack secrets. Aside from Google Docs, Gmail, are there any tech tools or AI hacks that you swear by to keep your business running smoothly?
Believe it or not, I use Google Docs for a lot of things, even prioritizing my campaign stuff that goes on. I don't use Asana, especially, and I'll do that after we've gone through a couple of dates, and I know, but Google Docs is probably my favorite thing on the planet because there's so many things I do with it. And then AI, I would say Claude is probably my favorite. Now I play a lot with AI. There's a lot of things I've began nerding out on prompt engineering and just how much fun that is and how much time and energy it saves. But I would say out of all of those things, and I could get really nerdy, but I think, my good friend Jay Beckham is my, he's my nerd that makes a lot of my crazy ideas come to life. But I would say Claude, if I had to point to one thing, as an LLM is great. I do love Manus for a lot of different reasons as well. And marrying Claude with Manus on a lot of things is pretty cool. And there's some neat stuff I do with all of that too.
Amazing. Last question. Most memorable entrepreneurial moment. What's one moment in your entrepreneurial journey that you'll never forget, whether it was a win or a lesson learned?
Oh gosh. I have to go to the lessons learned. In 2014, I was towards the end of 2014. Well, it was probably mid 2015 before I met Travis Sago. I was burnt. I was trying to do everything in my business. If it was going to be, it was up to me, right? We've all heard that. And I would say lessons learned from that was probably more important, that I went through that chaos and that fire and that burnout inevitably, because that's what did happen. If it wasn't for my work with Travis, I don't know what I would have done after that. It would have been probably pretty scary, just because of this sheer, exhaustion and pushing. And this is where I get into my meaningful man stuff, because I was seeking, when I look back then, even, I was seeking a lot of validation in so many ways. And I think a lot of people who work with clients, not a lot, maybe some, do go through the same thing, where I think the client work serves as another purpose for their personality, more than just making money and maybe taking care of their family and things like that. So I would say that was a huge takeaway. And 2015 and 2016 were huge wake-up days for me, or wake-up years.
So tell us about your free gift that you have given to us so kindly. It's called dealsoverclients.com with /sales ninja.
Yeah. So this is your guide to finding mission-driven partners. This is actually something that is part of the Meaningful Man School community. So I just was like, what can I give that would be really useful, that would also incentivize, of course, and complement the Deals Over Clients book. When you read the Deals Over Clients, the book, matter of fact, when you head over here and you opt in, you'll get access. The guide will be emailed to you. But I really encourage you to pick up the book, because the book is the precedence. It's the pre-selling aspect of it. It tells you the stance that we come from in order to show up as investors, rather than simply freelancers or individuals, or copywriters and things like that. The guide to finding mission-driven partners, the reason why that's so important is because people have missions, generally are big thinkers, they're big doers. They've got things that are going on. They've got other people that they're rallying around the mission. And it works really, really well. So I've just decided this last night when you'd messaged me about the sale. I was like, yeah, I don't have it up yet, because I'm really trying to think what would make the most sense. So I wanted to give that, because I think also it's a perfect complement to the book. So once you do, you can go to Amazon.com and grab the book. Once you opt in for the guide, there's another button there that will take you directly to the book. And I think that the companion guide to Deals Over Clients is really useful, because it gives you a bit more of an insight as to how we think. And I actually give actionable approaches, how we talk to them, how we reach out to them in that aspect. Because finding mission-driven partners, I think, is going to make, again, it goes back to that we talked about earlier. It's the who you work with, not exactly what you do. What you do is not nearly as important as who you choose to partner with. And so I thought these two would make a great companion. And also, if the guide is valuable to you, we've got stuff like that times 10 inside the Meaningful Man School community, where people are getting paid support to put together deals.
So there you guys have it. Head over to dealsoverclients.com /sales ninja. Get the book, Deals Over Clients. It'll enter into a whole portal of the school community and the other programs that Tony has been, doing for the last decade or so, to be able to build these incredible partnerships, mission-driven partners, not clients, to help deal making and to help grow and scale businesses. If you guys are interested in getting a hold of Tony yourself, check out his socials. You can connect with him here at facebook.com /Tony Teegarden. You can connect with him at instagram.com /Tony Teegarden. And also you can connect with him at LinkedIn in the show notes as well. So again, Tony, what a treat. I mean, I'm just a student learning and listening and trying to understand how you're doing what you're doing, the way that you're impacting people. The work that you're doing is not only meaningful and mission driven, but it's different. And I really appreciate your faith and the effort that you have put to help grow these businesses and get massive, sales, impact, changing people's lives. If there's people who are listening and are kind of on the fence with regards to, should I keep going or should I give up? Should I go into corporate? Should I stay in entrepreneurship? What are some words of inspiration or quotes or Bible verses or words of faith that you would like to give? And Cindy, before we end, says, hi, what a gift this is. So Cindy says, thank you for that.
Thank you. Gosh, Proverbs is iron sharpens iron, man, or is iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man, right? Mm-hmm. I live by that so many times. And I would say that your values are really key. I'm a huge values guy. I like studying values and understanding your values. I think between the written word and your values, I think between those two things, there's portals of opportunity that open up to us. And I can tell you, as someone who does not know, I don't know my dad. I never met him or anything like that.
Wow,
and
really?
And I mean, I've got a pretty interesting past as a childhood. We'll just put it that way. I used to never think that I had a father. And then one day I realized, like, I've always had a father, just never really acknowledged him. Right. And I think that there's this, this amazing well of and depth of love and inspirations that's available to each and every one of us, if we so choose to acknowledge and to embrace that gift. And I think that along the lines of, as well as also understanding what you do truly value, realigning your values, if life isn't looking or showing up the way you'd like it to be, there's completely within our capability to realign and readjust both our commitment and our faith, and then also, of course, where we focus and put our attention. I think those are very important aspects.
Amazing. So there you have it. Check out dealsoverclients.com /Sales Ninja to learn more. Connect with Tony on socials. If you guys are looking to get a Sales Ninja Psychology Masterclass, a complimentary guest pass, tomorrow, Thursday at 10 a.m., I'm opening up some spots. Just click the link in the website in the comments for your guest pass, and I will help you get the hidden gold that is that you're leaving on the table. So again, thank you so much, Tony, for your time today. What a treat it was. Looking for a part 2, because definitely want to know about your personal life and not having a dad, never meeting your dad. And we have a last person saying, Hendrik Atima saying, hi, TT. So you got a lot of people that are loving and rooting for you. So again, on behalf of everyone and Tony and myself, thank you so much for tuning into the Sales Ninja Show, where we help you to sell more, to give more. Much love, Tony. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to see you.